All right, Freddie, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, welcome back, everyone, to The Educator and the Hustler. We are just two friends that have met through circumstances that we both felt important things about with education and community and life, and decided that even though we were super different, we've become really good friends and figured that this podcast was a great way to start talking about those things that maybe bring us more together than apart. And so I'm really excited for this episode, especially because, Freddie, tell us what we're talking about and what is so special about this moment right now.
Yes. So bless you. I have the honor of saying that I have 9 years sober. Celebrated that this Saturday. It's weird to say it, weird because it's a miracle. Um, I didn't expect to be here. I'm grateful. It's a miracle. Like,
It's amazing. Congratulations. It's a huge,
thank you
huge
very
deal.
much. Thank you. And just so we're clear, and the stats say, and they tell you this in treatment, 2 out of 10 make it, right?
Mm,
This is the only field of medicine where failure is acceptable. Instead of looking at the system, we ask the people what the problem is. And the fact that I was 2 out of 10, it tells me that I have a duty to make sure I'm spreading this message because not everybody's going to have a chance to meet a Laura. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
yeah,
grateful.
well, you've met lots of people and you've had a huge support network and you've done a lot of the hard work, which
Yes.
I think is big. And
Yes.
we often talk about, on and off air, we talk about the education system, the mental health system, how
Yep.
everything, all of those systems and the people in those systems can either work for somebody or
Yep.
against somebody.
Yep.
And I think you've learned a lot about how to work the systems to work for you.
Yep.
And I've worked in the systems as an educator for 25 years, trying to work through the system to get
Right.
it to work for people.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I think it's a huge milestone to celebrate for you. So that's massive congratulations. And I
Thank
hope
you.
anyone that's listening will reach out to you, whether it's on social media or on your website, to congratulate you because it's amazing. It's a big deal.
Thank you. I'm really grateful. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
I got 9 years sober.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I want to talk a little bit about this today because we've talked about how, again, that support network, the system in education and
Mhm.
mental health, which so often go hand in hand. And many decades ago, they didn't. They seemed very separate. And I
Right.
think we've all learned in the last, you know, 10 or 20 years, and particularly since COVID, with all of the new research around the link to mental health and the education system, how important it is for those things to work together. And so I think it'd be really valuable for people to hear kind of how your journey and your sort of navigating the systems, whether it was education or mental health or both, like how you created a sense of belonging for yourself or how other
Mhm.
people created that for you, how you needed to not go about this journey just all on your own. The asking for help, all of that I think is really important for people to hear about because what seems obvious to you is not obvious to other people.
Yeah. So a few things, right? I always say God, grind, and the right support. Like I always say that. And that's really what it is. One thing traveling I've learned is it's hard to be what you can't see. You're gonna be what you come from. Yes, there'll be a couple rows out of concrete, but I don't want a society like that. I want equity, right? So
Yep.
what I can tell you is this. I wasn't scared to reach out for help because the environment said don't be scared, right? So like the community college I was going to, the people I met, their tone and tenure and the environment made you want to ask for help because they were open. They were, hey, we're here. Hey, this is what we do. Hey, when you have that type of spirit, that attracts me because that's how I am. Right. So like 1 + 1 = 2. And then before I knew it, everybody in that building was giving me directions on what to do. Now, mind you, I was working at Panera and I was a customer service. I was the dining room person. Funny story, they wouldn't put me nowhere else because I talk too much. So they were like, you got to be in the dining room. And in the dining room, I created what is called Panera Moms. There were these moms that came in older moms, if they hear this, they're gonna be pissed, but I love y'all. And they would come in and they would make cookies and talk to me, but they were guiding me in life, right? So like I would tell them about school, tell them about this, tell them about that. And then when I got with Kim, it really got bigger because I had a new life. I didn't know nothing about being a husband. I know nothing about running a good household, middle class, whatever. I know nothing about that. So they were able to help me with that. So I have Panera, I have the school, I have my church. Like I'm surrounded by people trying to help me. And with that help came, I had to deal with don't go left, go right. You know what I mean? And before I knew it, life just really blossomed.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you said that the environment made that possible because I think so
Mm-mm.
often in schools and in sort of especially like bureaucratic spaces,
Mm-hmm.
it's about so many other things than getting people to feel safe there, even though the irony is that nothing gets done if people don't feel safe where they are, right? So
Yep.
I think about that a lot with schools and how we can create spaces where people are feeling like they can ask for help. I mean, I had a conversation today with three other women that were like, well, asking for help is really hard for me. And I was like, great, let's make it not so hard now,
Mm-hmm.
right? In this environment, let's make it so that it's normal to ask for help. It's seen as strength to ask for help. It's not something that you do shamefully, even if it's just help with, getting something done, like task being done, let alone something big like recovery and, asking for real life support,
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's super important. I know, in schools, there's ways that we've done this, right? Where we've come together around common language around the school, as leaders, being able to show staff and students and families like, hey, we're the leaders and we're asking for help. We're saying we can't do it all by ourselves and we're not even trying to. That, to your point of people can't be what they can't see, helps represent that and helps people see, oh, if the leaders are asking for help unapologetically, then I can ask for help too. Um, what was it about the environment when you were going through school or through your mental health recovery or both that stood out to you as something you trusted that you could ask for help? Were there certain things that people said, ways that they were, I don't know, something that's real tangible that someone can say, I don't know how to make sure people can ask for help here, but you could give them some idea of what that looks like?
Yep. So I'm gonna give you two examples. First example was my advisor I met, Mama Rose. When I first met her, I said, "Hey, this is what a class I want to take." She said, "Stop right there. Tell me who you are. Why are you here?" She cared about who I was as a person before she signed me up for a class. That made me feel safe to know that she really wanted me to take the best classes that would fit what I'm trying to do in life. She said, "Tell me about your life." So I told her about my life. She said, "Can I give you some positive feedback?" I said, "Yeah, I didn't even heard of that." She said, "Clean your house up." She said, "Your intelligence is not the issue." She said, "Your issue is going to be how healthy you can be before you get to this building. Because if you're healthy, then you'll do well in school." I never
Wow.
had nobody do that. Yeah, that was the first
Wow.
conversation.
So she
Then,
saw you as a person before a student even.
absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and, and let me say this. Uh, Prison number, da 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 da. Hi, welcome to Community College of Belmont. Student ID number. Same thing. She didn't
Yeah.
do that. She didn't do that. I was a human before I was a number, right? And
Yeah.
so,
That's
and the other
big.
thing, what? The other thing that was big was she usually they give you the paper and say, okay, go get a financial aid or da 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 da. She gave me the paper and then she walked me over to financial aid. Now she's
Nice.
walking me. She's stopping to think, hey, this is Frederick. He's with me. Blah, blah. I'll bring him over when he's done. Blah, blah. I'm like, wow, this is a family. Because now I'm not getting passed around. Right now, I'm somebody and you're sharing. The other thing, and I always go back to this, is when I came to your school, it absolutely changed how I look at young schools. And anybody listening to this, please take this tutorial on how you deal with children that are having issues. I will never forget this. And you're talking to somebody who failed out of 6 schools. You're talking to somebody who was in a psych unit before I was a preteen. I know all about the principal's office. Look, when I was at lower school, a, a kid who I absolutely adored. I thought he was just phenomenal. I was a fan. Kick and bit. And they didn't talk down to him. They didn't scream at him. They didn't chastise him. They didn't judge him. They didn't make it, what you did is so deplorable. Uh-uh. What did they do? They sat him down. They found out why. They talked to him in a kind way. They let him know what he did was unacceptable, but they talked to him in a way that it was unacceptable, but he could get better. He doesn't have to do that behavior. They explained what was going on. They didn't 911 come get him and make this big ordeal and put him in some room and throw shackles on him. Ain't do none of that. They didn't shame him. Guess what that does when you treat him like that? That lets the other kids know that if I do something bad here, I won't be shamed. I'll be helped. Do you know how big of a difference that is? You're talking to somebody that before I came to school, there was issues going on in my house. What y'all did that day should be on video and tutorial for everybody. That was beautiful.
Thanks. Thanks. I appreciate you appreciating it, right? And not seeing it and telling yourself a story about what it wasn't. It really was accountable, holding him accountable. It really was getting to the root cause of the problem and not just saying like this kid is screwing up the classroom for 20 some other kids and we got to get him out of here. That's not how school should operate.
Yep.
Uh, it's not how mental health facilities should operate. It's not how any space should operate.
At all.
It should always be about the person first, and it should always be, what are we going to do to help this kid? We've said it a lot of times, the line, that behavior is communication. And that kid that day, by kicking and biting, was communicating something.
Yep.
And it wasn't that he was just a naughty kid that needed to be punished. It was much deeper than that. And you're right, other kids that saw that, they didn't just go and kick and bite also because they thought they could. They were processing the fact that they were in a place where people were going to help other people, and everyone was going to have their chance to say what they needed to say about whatever was on their mind to be able to get the help that they needed.
Yep.
And that's big. And I just like refuse to be anywhere else that doesn't do that anymore. Right. Like you just,
Yeah. I mean,
it's,
I'm not even, I mean, what are we doing?
right.
And it's funny. We always say what's wrong with them. We never ask what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
We assume that they just grow up to kick and bite. No, maybe they've seen that somewhere and don't know no better.
Right. Right. They don't know how to express themselves in another way and
right.
things like that. I think that's part of it, is that the way that education can often be checking a box and getting through the standards that need to be taught, and teachers feeling and administrators feeling like there's no time for, quote, the other stuff, right? But nothing could be further from the truth. And I imagine a lot of the people listening are the people that also believe that. Like, we're probably preaching to the choir a little bit, right?
Right.
But I also think that there's enough people in schools that are still struggling with that are new to
right.
to education, new to the environment of like, what does this look like? It doesn't look like when we all went to school. I mean, that certainly, like you said, never happened with you when you were growing up. And so I think there's an element to this that's around like personal growth and everybody learning together that is really powerful, because there were times when there were kids that would test me so hard. I mean, they would push that button that they knew would test me. And there were times when I knew I wasn't the best person to deal with that kid. So I would tap out to get somebody else in. And I had to have that trust with them to say, like, you got to tap into this right now. Or I wanted to maybe support that kid, but that kid wasn't a kid that I was connected with as close to as someone else was. So then I tap into them, right? So it's knowing the kids really deeply and knowing like there's no ego about it, right? There's no like, I'm in this role and so I have to be this person to do this thing right now. It's not about that. It's about what's best for the kid right now. How can we get them the support that they need? If I'm not the person for that, great. Let me find someone that is.
It's called teamwork.
Yeah. And
it's like they say in I recently spoke for CYS, and they were talking about how
Say what CYS is for people that don't know.
children youth and services. So those are the people that intervene that remove children from households and put them in better situations or put you in adoption or other stuff. They got the real hard job.
Same as like child protective services.
Yeah,
Similar. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So one thing they said there that they always said is never discipline your kid when you're angry. Right. And we forget that when we're at schools, like they're kids. Their brains, I didn't even notice I got older. Your brain don't really stop developing until
25.
Right.
Yeah.
So why would you expect a 10-year-old to understand perspective of behavior? Why would you expect a 12-year-old to understand that you have anger management issues? They're not. They don't know what anger management means. They don't know what pedagogy and retention mean. All they know is I'm mad. I want what I want.
Yeah.
Don't take it personal.
Yeah. I think systems are something that we talk about a lot, right? The systems that are broken, and you hear everyone say like the systems are broken. Right. One person alone can't change an entire system, but
of course,
are there things that people did in addition to what I heard you say around like people saw you as a person first, right? And the work you've seen me do is like person first, right? What are the systems maybe that were in place while you were getting to your recovery, whether it was in your younger days or as you were going through community college? Like, were there systems that you know of that were in place, or systems that you could maybe imagine were in place to help you on that road to recovery?
So this is a complicated answer.
Yeah. Well, it usually is, right?
There's systems, but how you show up matters. Right? So let me give you an example. The first psych unit I went in when I was a child was actually a good psych unit. I mean, they had food, they had therapy, they had all that. But here's the problem. One, I only got in that psych unit because my mom had very good insurance through the state. Her job gave her the best insurance. If she wouldn't have had insurance, I would have been in some state funded place that basically is a holding center. They give kids medication. That's what it is. That's the truth. Secondly, the place I was at was all the kids in there were white and I was the only black kid. Now, that stuff matters because representation matters, especially when you're dealing with psych issues. Secondly, nobody in there looked like me as far as an administrative level or like a counselor level. So the food was cool, the nutrition, the program, all that stuff was good. But you got to understand race is real. Right. And so when my mom shows up, she's a single parent woman of color, and she shows up here and nobody in here can relate to that background. As good as this place is, you're asking two very different dynamics to sit at a table and know what's best for Freddy. Now, my other colleagues and friends that were there, when their parents sat at the table with those folks, those conversations went different. Or when they did get spicy, it didn't go but so left because they can relate because they coming from the same backgrounds. My mom don't have it just don't work that way. So yes, there's systems, but I believe, and I believe this is why I'm at where I'm at, you need to find angels within them systems in order to really rise above. Now listen, that don't mean that every treatment center is bad, and that don't mean every psych unit is bad, and that don't mean, but I'm telling you, in my history, and I've been on this earth 42 years, and I've been in a lot of treatment centers, psych units, and shelters. You're going to need to find somebody that thinks outside that box and sees you as a human and look at what's best for you and your situation and how you can get treatment. Example, when I went to treatment last time, Mama Sue, God rest her soul, I was washing my clothes at night every night because I only had a couple pair of clothes. It was bad. She stopped me and said, Freddie, you know you can't wash your clothes like that. She said, come sit down, talk to me. So I sat down, I immediately started crying. She said, what's wrong, honey? So I told her. She said, you know your life ain't over. You can be anything you want. She gave me a couple Skittles. She said, do me a favor. I said, oh, thank you. She said, I'll bring you some more Skittles in, but every night I want you to write down what you want to be. I want you to get some books and start reading. I said, bet. Don't you know that turned into a relationship? That every night she was talking to me about what I can do and how I could do it. When I left that rehab, she said, Freddie, you have a duty as a son. It is now your job to go out there, get your life right, come back in here, pull somebody out the fire, and be a good son to your mother. Let me go further. I get inducted in the Phi Theta Kappa International Honor Society. My mom can't be there because she's in the psych unit dealing with her mental illness. I call Sue. She replaces my mother's seat. Sue drove over an hour and a half to be there. When on video, when they announced my name, she said, "Woo, Freddie." She looks at my wife and says, "I love him unconditionally as a son." She takes a picture. A few years later, unfortunately, she passes. What's the point? They tell you don't even get personal in them rehabs with people. They tell you don't form a relationship with them. But if Sue wouldn't have sat me down and told me that I can make it and help me and gave me some Skittles, and yes, it's against the policy, but them Skittles saved my life, right? So
So what I'm hearing is that sometimes you got to do what you know to be right, even if it's not how the system is set up to be. Yeah.
it's capitalism. It's not set up to care about the
Yeah.
person.
Do you know one of my favorite lines, and I can't remember who first told me this because I would love to credit them with it, but I don't remember. It was years ago. And they said that they build trust with people because they have to figure out who are the people in that system that know which rules to break. And those are the people that are their people. Those are the people they can build trust with, because if you have someone that just is totally by the book, like 100% of the time,
Right.
then it's almost like they're not as trustworthy in this theory, right? This theory of
Right.
like which rules to break, right? So imagine if Sue was one of those people that was 100% by the book 100% of the time, right? She didn't break any of those rules. You would not be potentially where you are today because she knew which rules to break. But if she didn't know which rules to break, she knew a few Skittles wasn't going to be the end of the world. She knew that those were going to be what mattered, right? She knew that getting to know you as a person first was what really was going to matter, even if the policies said not to. And so I think that's tricky because, of course, I don't want to, be like, break all the rules, everyone, right?
Right.
Like, rules there for a reason, fine, but know which ones to break and for
And
the reasons why you're breaking them, right?
not only do I agree, but let me say this: when I left that rehab, I was homeless, but they sent me to a halfway house. I had no money, had nothing. A couple of the counselors gave me $20. A couple of the counselors bought me socks. A couple of the counselors bought me laundry detergent. You ain't supposed to do that. But they saw if this kid get a little bit of help, if he just, and now when I come back, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, but the risk is worth the reward.
Yeah.
They imagine being a counselor, how you feel now. He get a text, yo, I'm in Africa. Thanks for saving my life. Was that $20 worth it?
Yeah. That's a rule that was worth breaking for sure. Yeah,
Break them all
absolutely.
day.
Absolutely. I love that example. And I think it's something that I hope people can think about when, they're going back into their spaces and they're wanting to do right by kids and they're wanting to do the right thing. And so much of what the burnout can happen, and I know I've been there myself over the years, is I
Mm-hmm.
want to do more, but I can't. There's too much red
Right.
tape. Nobody understands how much I can help, but I can't help at the
Right.
same time. And it's incredibly stifling. It's incredibly frustrating. And so I think, learning which rules to break and knowing why you're doing that and taking that risk. We talk a lot about those entrepreneurial skills, right? And like taking a risk, know which risks to take, right? And the
Agreed.
reasons why you're taking them.
Agreed.
Because if they're aligned with your values, you can't really go wrong,
So you can
right?
sleep
Most of the
well at
time,
night.
pretty fair to say. Yeah. So
Agreed.
I am super glad that those people broke those rules for you. I'm super glad that you were able to kind of create this network of support. I really hope that people come away with thinking about asking for help and what that really looks like, and creating those spaces for themselves to ask for help, but for other people to ask for that help also, because none of us are getting through this life on our own. We're just not. And building support networks. I mean, you and I have built a support network with each other that is very unlikely and uncommon,
Yep.
and it's been amazing for both of us. And
You
so,
have, I am deeply blessed that you're in my life. You
yeah,
have
well,
been
back at you.
super good to me.
Back at you. Like, I feel really grateful, and this wasn't, it was both of us reaching out to find out how we can help each other. It was both of us trying to say, like, look, this is not the most obvious friendship, because we come from different places and we're totally different people in so many ways, and yet we come together around such shared beliefs and
Yep.
such shared knowledge about the world, and how it can and should be, for
Yep.
kids especially. So I appreciate you. I'm so glad that we got, time to chat today, and I'm excited, for our next episode. So
Me too. And pretty soon I will
amazing.
see you in person.
Absolutely. You're going to be in Colorado in August. So anyone that happens to listen to this in August, 18th through the 25th, is
Yeah,
that right?
19th. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm yeah.
25,
Yeah.
that you're going to be here. And so we're going to make the most of it. And we're going to have you speaking to as many people as you can to get your message
Yes.
across to people, because people need to hear your message.
And I'm gonna have a cheat day because I'm currently eating healthy. So I'm coming out there to get bison ribeye and ice cream because I'm on a health
Amazing.
kick.
Amazing. Love it. All right. Well,
All right.
until next time, this was amazing. Thank you, Freddie,
Yep.
and congratulations on your huge milestone.
Bless you. Wouldn't be here without folks like you. Bless you.
All right. Bye,
All
everyone.
right.